All right, we need to talk about ADHD and procrastination. All right, I absolutely hate procrastination. Video sponsored by Squarespace. I absolutely hate procrastination. It is also the main tool that I've used my entire life to do literally anything. I think it is like one of the most powerful tools that we have as a resource for those of us with ADHD. And it's something that not everybody understands. So I made a TikTok about that, especially people who don't struggle with this or don't have symptoms of ADHD or I guess don't, especially people who don't have ADHD. Sometimes this is sort of like, what are you talking about? Like, why would you do that to yourself? So I made this video in 2022 that explains the concept that I want you to watch first, and then we'll dive into it.
I know you have ADHD, but why don't you just do the stuff that you need to do? Well, let me tell you, for people like us, our ability to start something is very strongly related to its NICU score. Is it new? Is it interesting? Is it challenging? And is it urgent? The more NICU it is, the more likely we'll be able to get started. So the next time you find yourself completely unable to do something that you need to do, ask yourself, is it new? Is it interesting? Is it challenging? Is it urgent? Well, no wonder you don't want to do it. Is there any way to make it more of any or all of those things? You got this. You got this thing. And now you have an answer the next time someone says,
so NICU, right? New, interesting, challenging, urgent. Urgency is the procrastination one. Like, to create urgency, what you need to do, what I need to do, what I've always done is waited until the last minute. All through college, waiting to write papers until it was the morning that the paper was due. Or if I can't find the motivation to do something, writing papers wasn't new. A lot of my papers weren't interesting to me for some reason. It wasn't extremely challenging because of like my past success with writing papers. So it was like in NICU and all of the things that make people with ADHD do stuff, I wasn't able to check those 3 boxes, right? So the easiest way, the tool that I always have fallen back on, I'm 38 years old, I still do this to this day, is just wait until the last possible second. Wait until even past a deadline. Like, if you want someone with ADHD to do something, give them a deadline, let the deadline approach and pass, and I guarantee you their brain will start working, will start churning out something because of the amount of urgency that is now required to get that thing done. And it feels terrible. It just feels so terrible. Like if I could snap my fingers and make myself just feel this level of motivation to do stuff that I know I need to do, like at any given moment, or if it was just easier to make stuff new or easier to make stuff challenging. Like, if there was another tool that I could rely on that is as consistently reliable as procrastination, I would do that in a second,
Squarespace has got some awesome new stuff going on. First is design intelligence. It's 2 decades of industry-leading design experience combined with AI to help you craft a beautiful, more personalized website quickly and easily. Second is Squarespace Payments. You can manage all of your payments right in Squarespace and give your customers more ways to pay with all the regular methods plus ACH direct deposit, Klarna, Afterpay, Apple Pay, and ClearPay. And lastly, right along with that, Squarespace invoicing. You can send estimates, proposals, contracts, and invoices right through your Squarespace site. Makes it super easy for your customers and for you as a business owner. If you want to try it out, go to squarespace.com for a free trial. And then when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/CodyWarner to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
But for me, like medication, all the therapy that I've done so far, talking to other people with ADHD about it, getting on Reddit and like seeing other people's experience, I have never found something that works as well and as consistently as procrastinating. And it just is like, it's mind-boggling. But at the same time, it makes total sense because it's a pattern that I've always used. So of course I'm going to fall back on this pattern, And yeah, that's just really tough. It's just a really tough thing. on TikTok, there's a playlist that I made of like all my ADHD videos, and the one that comes like two after that, I think, is talking about deadlines. And if you're working with people who have ADHD, ideally you give them a deadline. Not ideally, you must give them a deadline. You never say to a person with ADHD, hey, you can get that to me whenever, because then you've taken away any amount of approaching potential motivation. So unless they find the thing new or interesting or challenging, and there's some other stuff too, like if it's high stakes, you know, if they feel like there's a lot on the line, that could maybe get them going. And there's probably other stuff that I don't even know about. Another one is like if you sit with them and do it, I do think that you know, that'd be like body doubling or together. That might make them feel some of that urgency, like in the moment, in the present moment. It might make them feel the challenge of like having to work with someone working next to them. So there are ways to get someone with ADHD to do something on time. But if you're not planning on sitting there with them while they do it, which is understandable, you have your own stuff to do, ideally you give them a deadline. Ideally, that deadline is actually 3 days before the deadline, but you don't tell them that. So now they have this like 3-day early deadline. You let that deadline approach. Maybe occasionally you're checking in, you're saying, hey, just a reminder that deadline's coming up. I need that on Thursday. And then if the deadline gets there and you still don't have the thing, you don't let them off the hook. You don't say, hey, it's really no problem. We really don't need it until Monday. You don't say that. You let them deal with the pain of having procrastinated, and that gets their brain going, and then they kick something out and they send it to you, and you know, maybe they have to iterate on it, maybe you have to work with them on it to bring it up to the level, because that's the problem with procrastinating is there's then this like sneaking suspicion that you haven't done your best work because you did it on this deadline. You were crunched, but that crunch was the only way that you could get yourself to do it. So maybe it needs to be worked on further, but it was the deadline that got them to the point where they are now to put out the work that they have now. Hope that this is making sense. I'm sure it's making sense to you if you have ADHD. If you don't have ADHD, you love someone who has ADHD, I hope that's making sense for you too. I've fantasized about like finding out someone has ADHD. They admit it, they procrastinate, they admit that they're a perfectionist, they admit that they have this feeling of like, I never reach my potential because I'm always waiting to the last second to do stuff. I have this dream of calling the people that they work with and saying, hey, this is exactly how you need to work with this person, and explaining this concept to them of using these tools, using new, interesting, challenging, and urgency to get them to put out their best work. And it, you know, I guess in a sense it is manipulation, but if it's like, you know, if it's consensual manipulation, which it always is for me, like if someone tells me, hey, Cody, we're leaving at 4:45, and I get there at 4:42, and they say, oh, awesome, man. Yeah, we actually don't need to leave until 5. I'm not mad. I mean, I might be irritated a little bit in the moment because I'll think like, oh, well, I could have done 30 more things, but in actuality, I couldn't have done those 30 more things. That would have pushed me past 4:45, would have probably push me much closer to 5. Like if you use this tool on me to get me to do something on your time scale that actually gets me to do it on your time scale, like I see the incredible value in that, you know? So I don't know, tread carefully, obviously. I'm rambling, it's late. I let it get late because I'm procrastinating. And then the procrastination made the motivation to do it. And also because I'm tired, that adds this extra challenge. I'm like, can I even do good videos while I'm tired? Then I set up this whole lighting thing, which is sort of procrastinating, but it's like, it's a little perfectionism, a little procrastination, but it's like pushing me further and further in time, and that's challenging. So it just was like perfect. It's this perfect ball of NICU that I'm working with right now. But there will be this sneaking suspicion that, oh, I could have had this, I could have had that. If I just would have done this earlier, I could have done all this stuff. But the issue is I wouldn't have done all this stuff if I did it earlier. So I've reached a bit of a level of acceptance, I think. And that's what it really comes down to for me. And it's a level of acceptance that I hope other people with ADHD can come to, of just like, hey, this is how I operate naturally. And so by all means, like, let's continue to try to figure out ways to help people with ADHD not procrastinate, not rely on NICU to get stuff done. Let's try to make their lives more peaceful and less chaotic and all of that stuff. And like, I think we're doing that. I think we're doing a good job of that as like a culture, with therapy and medication and support from the community or support groups, whatever. I think we're doing a good job of like trying to figure this stuff out. There hasn't been another silver bullet like procrastination for me yet, but I'm open to ideas. But I've also accepted that this is how I operate, and I want to operate in this way as best as I can. Hope that's a glimmer of hope, maybe. Maybe it's just all rambling for you. Either way, I just love that you're watching this. I love that you're here. And if you're suffering through stuff like this, know that I resonate deeply with it. And, keep going. Let's get it. Let's get this thing. Now I gotta tear all these lights down before I leave and go home and go to sleep. And that's the part of a project that not great at the last, the last 6%, 10%, I don't know. Cleaning up is always the hardest part. I wish I could just leave this all here and it would just get cleaned by itself, but it won't. It's my job, it's my responsibility. Let's get it, let's go.